Hello and welcome to Inside Grand Prix. Today, we're off to the land of the rising sun, a country with huge enthusiasm for motorsport. With world champion Lewis Hamilton, we sample the legendary circuit in Suzuka, and we recall the duel of the century, Senna versus Prost. And now, it's off to Japan. Here, you swim with the tide, from one human eddy to the next. Everywhere, faces, shrill noises, and loud colors. All your senses bombarded with impressions. Tokyo, the unfathomable city. The greater Tokyo area is home to almost 38 of Japan's 127 million inhabitants. The most important thing, being polite and always smiling nicely.
Da tickt vieles anders, nicht nur.
Lots of things are different there. It's not just that the people interact differently and have different customs, but for instance that everyday life has also a different appearance. The look of the cities and villages is incomparable with what we're familiar to in Europe or what you can see in the United States or South America. It's really very unique.
Südamerika zu sehen ist, das ist schon sehr speziell.
Between the high-rise buildings, you encounter all kinds of characters. From weird and wacky to business samurai, you see them all. Despite the high life, the old traditions are retained. In Zen meditation, you cast off life's hectic pace and routine. Look inside yourself, find your inner being, and collect your strength. But beware, doze off and you'll be woken up with the cane.
You know, I think it's something I can use also in my sport, in my racing. It really teaches you to control your emotions and, you know, just understand, you know, how your body and mind work together. So definitely nice to learn some new techniques and to see how the locals do it as well.
Including kendo, typically Japanese, concentration, determination. And great dedication, especially to Formula One. The Japanese have a word for crazy fans too, otaku. An autograph, and maybe even a touch. This could turn into a scrap. Here, even the typical Japanese reserve gets briefly set aside. Such enthusiasm thrills the drivers as well.
To race here in Japan, I mean, you don't need much more motivation because, I mean, the circuit is amazing, but the fans as well. So if you come here not motivated, I think it's very easy to make that switch, but no, for me, I love coming here for the circuit and the fans. Thanks for all your support and generosity, and we'll see you on the circuit.
Now, personal, private, Button.
When I was growing up, I watched Formula One, and I used to watch Ayrton Senna, Alain Prost, and they were, funny enough, they were actually racing for McLaren back then. And it's probably one of the best eras to grow up and, you know, be a kid and to watch Formula One. Massive inspiration. So they were sort of heroes, but not as much as my dad was. You know, that my dad made my career, basically. I started racing at 8, and my dad used to stand out on the circuit and tell me where to drive, you know, which racing lines to take. And, you know, in those days we didn't have enough money to go professional racing, but he worked hard so that we could go racing every weekend. And he's the guy that went out and found the sponsors and the manager that took me through to Formula One. Pressure doesn't really affect me in that way because I started at such an early age. You learn things a lot quicker at an early age. You know, I am confident in my ability, and you understand your surroundings at speed at 8 years old. It's my 16th year in Formula One this year, which is scary because it feels like I started yesterday. Some people will like your style of driving, others won't. You know, I, for example, loved Alain Prost, the way he went racing. Ayrton Senna, I knew he was passionate about the sport. He was a very aggressive driver and was probably quicker than Alain Prost, but Alain Prost could still beat him. They called him the scientist, the professor. He was a very intelligent driver. It's so interesting to hear the stories and see how you compare to that individual that you really looked up to as a kid. I really do think I based myself on him as a kid growing up, driving style. He was a really inspirational individual. Most special win was winning in Suzuka in Japan. because it's a circuit I watched Ayrton and Alain racing on in the 80s, fighting for a win. And I was able to win there just in front of 2 other world champions. Formula One is all about aerodynamics. As soon as you've got these big wings on the car, pushing the car into the road, they work at different positions. It's so technical, and that's a part of the job that I've learned over the years, and I've loved that when you talk to the engineers and the aerodynamicists about aerodynamics. I mean, an aerodynamicist would look at that now and go, are you kidding me? First of all, the driver can't see anything, and that's not really doing much, because this car never went in a wind tunnel. It was a lot of engineers thinking, well, this probably would work. The technology's come so far. Every year they limit us on what we can do. There's a limit of how far we can push downforce. Most circuits have long straights, so we need an efficient car, something that's slippery in the wind. You know, people say, what scares you the most in life? And I think for a lot of sportsmen, it's failure. It's not succeeding at what you think you're good at. I really went through some difficult times to get into a competitive car. It took me 8 years before I found a car that I could win races with. You need lightning reactions. The start, you're reacting to the lights going out, and it's 0.18 of a second. And that's what gives you the buzz, the adrenaline rush in a Formula One car. And that's just you on your own. Then you've got to throw the other cars around you. It's an absolute mess. I mean, your brain is just firing in every single way possible. In that period of time, that's when you realize what sort of person you are. When I crossed the finish line in Brazil, when I won the World Championship, everything was going through my mind. You know, you think back to hundreds of races that you've done, and you think of what you've gone through, the good times, the bad times. Things are just flashing up in your mind of what's happened to you in your career. It's amazing how much can go through your mind in a split second.
And now we steer straight ahead. The Formula One steering wheel. This one we could still explain a bit back then in the 80s. But this one here, seen it often enough, but never understood it.
So, das ist jetzt mein Lenkrad.
So this here is my steering wheel, and I agree it looks very complicated.
Kompliziert aus.
Mainly all of these maps here are related to engine or fuel.
Things we use most in the steering wheel actually are at the back. The gear shifts, the clutches for start and leaving the garage, as well as the curse and DRS buttons.
So many buttons, over 50 different settings, not to everyone's liking.
I don't particularly like the button for the boost and the DRS and the fake things that they've put in Formula One to make it easier to overtake. I don't really like that.
Okay, so Eddie's Formula One time is already a while ago. Let's look instead at what's happening now. Back to the roots. The start is in the driver's hands again, with no computers at all.
You probably all know is the new regulations on the clutch, which mean that us drivers, we will not be able to get feedback from the engineers, which we usually get after, you know, the practice starts on the laps to the grid and the green flag lap. So that means what?
So the race starts only, we cannot, what they normally do is the team, because they monitor all the system on the background, they know exactly where is the perfect bite point and temperature of the clutches, so they feed back to us and then we make an adjustment from the steering wheel to have the best start possible. But now this won't be available anymore.
Put simply, that means the driver and his skill are again being tested. This year there's also the virtual safety car. The new safety system shows a minimum sector time on the steering wheel's display. The driver is not allowed to go below it. Naturally, only in dangerous situations. The days when a steering wheel was just for steering are long gone. Nowadays, the drivers have individually adapted control centers. 1.8 kilograms light, the handles sometimes leather, sometimes silicone, the buttons to suit personal preference. The likes of us will never understand it, but one thing never changes, not even for the world champion.
This is your Bible.
Off we go onto the net, this time Young Love, bombastic bass and horrific doppelganger. Now something for your ears. Spare Time DJ Hamilton's been tinkering with a Formula One soundtrack.
Music is my escape. Like double it a couple of times.
Yeah.
Cool.
The ladies' man was also crowned Sportsman of the Year by GQ Men's Magazine. With chilled expression, he adorns the cover of the British October issue. There are loving glances and tweets between Verstappen and Michaela Alin Kotulinski. The beautiful Swede has 5 years on the youngster and currently races in the Audi TT Cup. Baby shower for Nico and Vivian. Apart from little feet, you don't see much yet, but at least there's a name. The little one's to be called Alaya, which means cheerful one in Basque. With Silver Arrow's bobby car and pink teddy bear, she certainly ought to have fun. Reasons too for visitors to Madame Tussauds in Singapore to be happy. They can now see Vettel and Hamilton up close, but please don't touch, enough to make you swoon or scared. They both go equally well in a chamber of horrors. That's all from the social net. We'll keep you posted. We'll be right back with the latest from the paddock. Plus, the F1 in Schools World Championship. What's it all about? Don't go away.